Alright. I wrote a review about the company I used to work for that I talk about inducing PTSD, basically like intentionally, with the driven goal was basically because I didn't interact with them as much as they wanted me to, and because I, obviously didn't show that I liked them in the office, they didn't like me, so they started to basically do things to irritate me, to get me to leave the office, things that I disagreed with, in the office when they did it, things that I showed distaste for clearly, but they saw that as, oh, this is what we want to do this. They showed that my reaction drove what they did harder. They didn't stop when I showed how I felt about what they were doing. They continued to push it, which says that their end goal probably was to get me to leave the office. I'm just going to read the review I left on Google. I worked for this company for about 2 years. The office I worked out of was heavily socially, politically driven to the point where it was disgusting. After the first month, I realized I had made a huge mistake applying for a position here. This mistake only grew. Within the first month, I found I had extremely bitter and jealous coworkers due to my hard work ethic and unwillingness to eat lunch with my coworkers every single day. I ate lunch with them sometimes, but then the first few days I didn't, they instantly just created this bitter middle school fucking environment that adults, you shouldn't look at yourselves as adults if you do something like this. I felt like I was back in middle school dealing with children. This bitterness and jealousy grew with my distaste for the company's unprofessional work environment. In my opinion, I became a burden to their internal work chemistry, which happens, and that's fine. But the way that a company responds to that, you're not in free roam to do whatever you want to anybody because you pay them a salary. And that's my point, is what I'm trying to prove, because what they did left a tremendously long-lasting impact on my personal life, and I've had to deal with it ever since. In my opinion, I became a burden to their internal work chemistry for not socially interacting with them as much as they expected. Then they began to go out of their way to spread untrue rumors about my sexual orientation at a place of employment, both within the place of employment and outside to my neighboring community where I grew up. I made a point as this began going on to express both my disagreement and distaste for this immature, intolerable behavior. Unfortunately, my reaction didn't make a difference, as I honestly believe it was their goal to make me find a new job, which is not okay. This turned into harassment from my coworkers and bosses daily. And I even began to notice changes while interacting with my local community as a result. Almost any interaction I had with these people, one, I didn't interact with people that much, so my social skills were starting to drop off the table. At any time I had poor social skills, they would just turn it into what they were saying about me, which you don't do that unless you have a vendetta against somebody. And that's basically what they did. Anytime I interact with them when I'm already struggling with poor social skills and public speaking and things like that, and I've talked about other bosses at that job about this, about public speaking, and they, identified that I have a public speaking problem, literally talked about them word for word about this. And then some people in the office turned that into things that would irritate me and continued to push that button until they got what they wanted, which was me leaving the job. This turned into harassment from my coworkers and bosses daily, and I began to notice changes while interacting with my local community as a result. It even got to the point where I literally had to sit down with two of my bosses like they were children and talk about the lies that they were spreading and what they were saying about me when I wasn't around them, and what they were whispering when I'd walk into a room just before I got there and I see them whispering and looking at me. And then some coworker would feel all awkward interacting with me right after someone was whispering in their ear. This literally went on daily. They would make jokes constantly anytime I would interact with them, anytime I was around them, and I didn't have anxiety. They would say, oh, you're on your best behavior today. Like I needed to have anxiety so they could justify what they were saying. Absolutely disgusting human beings, disgusting people. I hope nobody has to ever work with anybody like this. in their entire lives. When I sat down with them, both bosses acted as if they did nothing wrong. I eventually found a new, higher paying position, but their actions left a long-lasting impact on my life. I've suffered from PTSD for about 5 years now because of going through that job for about a year, and then what they said outside and how the local community treated me after, and it's gone on until this day, and that's been about 5 years now. And no longer am I willing to work for somebody, mostly due to those disgusting actions that I was subject to working a salary job and feeling like I couldn't open my mouth. I showed distaste, and I basically said, like, you know, no, I don't feel that way. And there was a girl in the office, I even had a crush on her. I'd even make a point to talk to her every day because I liked her. And they just blew that off because they wanted what they were saying to seem as accurate as possible because they didn't want me to work there anymore. And they got what they wanted. I wasn't going to sit there and deal with that my entire fucking life. So they were right, that probably would work. I highly recommend not applying for a position here from my own personal experience, as it left a detrimental impact on my life moving forward. This impacted my friends, this impacted my family, this impacted relations I had with both of those groups long term. And like I said, for about 5 years, I'm still been dealing with the impacts, the PTSD, the stress, the habitual thought loop of the worry that what they were doing was going to spread into my personal life, and how it turned into a real life fucking nightmare. And it's still something that I'm dealing with to this day. And I've had to isolate myself away from the situation to try to overcome the PTSD with positive interactions and positive thoughts. And I've lost social skills tremendously, and I've tried to, you know, make an effort to build myself up, to build my social skills back up and recover from suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder after dealing with a work environment that intentionally did this to somebody like me, did this to me. So that's the Google review I left for the company I used to work for. I hope you find it online. I hope you never have to work for a company like this. And I hope no company thinks that they can freely treat anybody like this because they don't want somebody to work there anymore and they don't know how to get rid of that person. And they think that this is the best route, because it's not. Because I'm going to continue to talk about what nobody should ever have to deal with for the rest of my life, because that's how little it was listened to, and that's how important it is. It's even more important because how little people listened to me from what I was dealing with every day. So, putting this on YouTube, and that's the Google review I just wrote. That's my honest experience working for this company and what I had to deal with on a daily basis every fucking day for these disgusting, pathetic, sad pieces of trash. So, I hope nobody has to deal with what I had to fucking deal with ever, and it never has as much of an impact on their fucking life as it had on mine. I'm really just fucking doing this to fucking spread my voice, because nobody should ever have to deal with this. No fucking children should pose as adults and fucking do this to anybody, ever. End of story.